Sigma have just announced the new 28-105 f2.8, and it may be the most versatile zoom lens ever made for the L mount. Jumping straight into it, let's talk about the price. Here in the UK, the lens will set you back £1,399. It will go on sale from the 26th of September, and as always, will be available for both the L mount and the E mount. The press release claims that the 28-105 weighs 955 grams, although on my scales it was coming in at 1003 grams. And for reference, my scales say that the S Pro 2470 from Lumix weighs 936 grams, while the official weight of that lens is 935 grams. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Sigma are bending the truth here slightly. It is a heavy lens, but making a constant f2.8 zoom with this much range is a difficult task, and I think Sigma have done a fantastic job. Like with all Art Series lenses, it's built extremely well with a declickable aperture ring, 2 customizable AFL buttons, a zoom lock switch, an aperture lock switch, and your usual AF/MF switch. The filter thread size is 82mm, and unfortunately it doesn't zoom internally, so you will gain about 1/3 of the lens's length as you zoom in. But like I said, it must have been a difficult lens to design, and all things considered, I do think that Sigma have really delivered on this one. I love reviewing Sigma lenses, but I always feel like I'm repeating myself every time that day comes around, because I rarely have anything negative to say about the image quality. As you'd expect with any Art Series lens, it is phenomenally sharp all the way through the focal range and displays minimal focus breathing, making it great for both photo and video. The AF performance is also fantastic, and I didn't have any issues when shooting stills and video. It feels snappy and responsive while remaining very quiet, so no complaints there whatsoever. All of the new AF detect modes on the S52 and the S52X work really well, including the animal detection mode. I found my hit rate with the seagulls in Brighton to be very high, so again, you won't have any issues with autofocus. Another really cool thing about the 28-105 is that the minimum focus distance is 40 centimeters across the entire focal range, so you can get pretty close even at 105mm. It gives you a 1 to 3.1 magnification ratio, so it's definitely no slouch when it comes to macro photography. So now I want to show you guys a little sharpness test that I did between the brand new Sigma 28-105 compared to the S Pro 2470 from Lumix. What I did was I set both lenses to 50mm, since that's sort of the middle ground of both of their focal ranges, and realistically I think I'd spend the most time around the 35 to 70mm mark if I was using these two lenses, so that felt like the most fair place to put them. And I took 4 images with each at 4 different apertures, so I did f2.8, f4, f5.6, and f8. And now what I'm going to do is just show you guys how they fare up against each other in terms of sharpness. So let's start off with the f2.8 example, and I want it to be known as well that I'll keep all of the images from the S Pro 2470 on the right hand side of the screen and all of the images from the 28-105 on the left hand side of the screen. So let's go ahead and zoom into our focus, which was this big SD card case, and as you guys can see, it's pretty noticeable. The 2470 is much sharper at f2.8, and at first I was quite confused by this, so I did actually go back and retake the f2.8 image with the 28-105, and I can confirm that it was not a focus issue. This is just what it looks like at f2.8, so it is noticeably softer than the S Pro 2470 at this aperture. So now let's go ahead and go to the f4 version, and let's zoom into the same place. Are we at f4? Yeah, we are. Let's zoom into the same place, and as you guys can see, the 28-105 definitely gets a lot sharper at this point. So for some reason, f2.8 is just not its best friend. At least compared to the S Pro 2470, which is known to be a very optically fantastic lens. But like now at this point, they look very similar. You can see here that all the text looks quite sharp. If anything, I'd still give the slight edge to the S Pro 2470, but we're talking about minor differences now. And if you guys want to have a little look at the color chart as well, I mean, they look pretty similar to my eye, at least on my monitor. Doesn't look like there's any major color shifts or differences between the two. So now let's go to the f5.6 image, and let's zoom into the same place again. And now I'd actually give the slight edge, believe it or not, to the 28-105. That's kind of weird actually. It looks like the 28-105 is sharper at f5.6. And again, what I'm looking at right now is this £31 coin, because that really shows exactly what's going on. Both images, however, are very, very sharp. And now let's go to the final image, which is taken at f8 on both images. And let's go to the same place again. And it looks like they're pretty much neck and neck. You're not really going to be able to tell much of a difference there at all. So realistically, the S Pro 24-70 is the sharper lens overall. And for some reason, the 28-105 at f2.8 is noticeably softer in comparison. I think it's actually a very, very sharp lens, and comparing it to the 24-70 is no easy task, since, you know, that lens is so good optically. So let's roll back to the price point again. Do you think £1,399 is a fair price for a lens like this? The cheapest that I could find, the S Pro 24-70, was around £1,700 on Amazon, although they're retailing at most camera stores for around £1,800. So we're still a good £300 to £400 cheaper with the 28-105. The only other comparable lens that comes to mind is the recently released Samyang 35-150 f2 to f2.8, and that will cost you right around the £1,000 mark. I haven't actually tested that lens yet and would love to do so. I think all things considered, this price is actually very reasonable for what you're getting. This lens could easily be a one and done for many, covering a wide focal range that will be pretty useful for most situations. Back when I first got into the L mount ecosystem, my only lens was the 24-105 f4, and I shot so many projects with that one lens. This feels like an upgraded version of that lens to me, albeit without the stabilization. And that would be my one and only complaint about this lens. I just wish that it had lens IS, but I am being super finicky now, and to be honest, if adding lens stabilization would have made the package a great deal bigger, then I'd opt to not have it at all. Pairing this lens with the S5 II or the S5 IIX feels nice and sturdy in the hands. And even though I'm not normally a fan of bigger, heavier lenses, it does help you feel more stable when shooting handheld video. If you have the S1, S1R or the S1H, this lens pairing will feel truly exceptional. I genuinely think that Sigma have smashed it out of the park with this one, and I'd have absolutely no problem recommending this lens to any professional looking for a robust and versatile zoom lens for their camera bag. Picking holes in Sigma glass is always a difficult task, especially when you get to their Art Series lineup. So if you are looking for a lens that has a great focal range without compromising on image quality or AF performance, then I genuinely recommend the 28-105. For £1,399, you'd be hard pressed to find another lens that can compete in all of those areas. I've also reviewed the new 50mm f1.2 from Sigma, so if you're interested in seeing how their fastest primes shape up, then check out this video next.